I said, I've asked Claude, I've asked ChatGPT, I've asked Google, they've all said no. And I've got somebody who's been there, done that, told me yes.
And you've
Yep.
said probably on 3 occasions, I don't believe it can happen.
And just now, you've told me that one of the brokers that I was on the phone to was just, he wasn't of help at all. And you told me to never take out a personal loan. Just these last two questions that you've answered has been so much. It's just worth its weight in gold, just having somebody to talk to.
Before we start going into your questions,
Yeah.
which may come out of your problem number one, structure of buying, can I challenge you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Why not?
I'm going to use the fact that you're into sales, right? You're a salesperson.
I've been in sales for 7 years, 8 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you'll be able to get to my question and answer it, knowing where I'm coming from this, but what is one of the key elements of being able to sell something, be it a product, service, or whatever it is? What's key to be able to sell something? Not the method, but for you as a person to sell either a product or service.
It's a bit of a weird one for me, but firstly, I would say, and I'll give you more than one answer, is understanding the product.
Yeah, that's key, but that wasn't the answer I'm looking for, but that is right. Yeah.
Okay. So it's first understanding the product, it's understanding the product and having a passion for the product. And then
What gives you passion? What would drive you to be passionate about something?
that's quite a difficult one to answer because in my entire 10 year of sales, I've had jobs in which I felt sharky and I have jobs in which I've been excited to push the product forward.
Okay, let's use that one.
Yeah.
What was it about that product that made you excited? And this is the bit I want you to get to. There's a purpose for this questioning. There's a real
Yeah.
there's a real reason I'm rather than me giving the answer, I want you to get to the answer. So sorry, I'm not being difficult. I just
No,
want
no, no, it's fine. It's fine. It is the genuine feeling that I could actually help someone in the problem that they're coming to me with.
because right.
Because I feel good. I don't know. I feel good about it. If somebody comes,
But why would you feel good about something?
I feel good, especially when I have a product I know that works. I feel
Yeah,
good.
you've nearly done it. Say that in different words. A product that you know that works. Enhance that. What do you mean by that? You're nearly there.
Oh, you're catching me now. A product I know that works. That is oh, effective.
It begins with B. You believe in it.
Yeah,
Most salespeople, in theory, you got sharks, and you said I felt a bit sharky, but let's put that to one side. But the ones that you've really enjoyed, you'll be able to sell better
yeah,
is if you believe in that product, right? And the reason that works better is because humans can read humans. They can read confidence and so on. And if you believe, right, so I'm an Apple phone user
yeah,
because I love Apple. And if I was an Apple salesperson, I could genuinely sell that to say it's a great phone because I believe in it, right?
yeah.
So therefore, you're going to make more sales because you believe in it. You're probably thinking, what on earth is Russell talking about here? But there is a
No,
purpose.
no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
You said it you simplified it. I've got to be able to be passionate about the product and also back the product. Like I said previously, I've been sharky salesman in my early sales days when I first got into sales and then transitioned into something was a lot more credible. And I've done a lot better when I did
There
believe
you
in
go.
the
Right.
product.
So we got there. Now, this is the challenge now.
Yeah.
A couple of times, I think 3 times, you can challenge me on that. You've said this whole buying a business, you use the expression no money down, or no money in, or none
Yeah.
of my own money, or effectively funded outside of my own money. And you've
Yeah.
said probably on 3 occasions, I don't believe it can happen.
Yeah.
So what's that going to do to you when you go and see business owners when you're looking for businesses to buy? If you don't believe something, what's that going to do to you?
It's going to affect my confidence whenever I am having these
Yeah,
seller calls. Yeah.
yeah. So if nothing else you take from this call, sit on that. And that's why I wanted you to, I know I helped you at the end, but you were almost there. And I think when I said about believe, you got it right. And I think if you translate that into buying a business, and one of my recent calls I had was the guy, and it was all about confidence. And believe it or not, he felt that he was going to be taken advantage of the business owner by buying the business from him if he negotiated with him. And I said, well, we need to reframe that, because that's going to stop you in your tracks. And it did, and it had. Because if you believe that you're taking advantage of someone and you're a decent person, you're not going to go forward with that, are you? And I said, well, if we reframe that, that actually you're helping that person. Because I asked him the question, I said, well, what is it that business owner wants to do? And of course he says, well, he wants to sell his business. I said, exactly. So why are you taking advantage of him? You're not taking advantage of him. You're his answer. You're his solution. He wants to sell. So the fact that you're negotiating price, that's normal. The fact that you're trying to finance it, be it assets of the business, seller financing, etc., again, you're not taking advantage of that individual. You're solving a problem. And their problem that they have is they want to sell their business. Okay. So I think I'll say, not believing is probably in that realm. And I hope you don't mind that I've challenged you on it, because I think if I see something, I think, well, actually, I think for you to move forward with this, you've got to go in with the belief.
Yeah.
Because by doing so, you're more likely to see the answers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think of an analogy of a belief system without.
I think where my belief kind of crumbled a bit was, I think I did a lot of sort of YouTubing around buying a business, and then I took that leap, and then, that the excitement was there initially of, yeah, I can actually do this. And then when I got into the program, there was a lot of jargon, and I didn't
there is a lot
understand.
of jargon, and
Yeah.
no money down. What I'm going to do, actually, I don't know whether you've watched, it's my very last video I posted. I'll post it in the chat. Go and listen to that video. This shares effectively a mistake I made during my process to buy a business. But the good thing is, by making mistakes, I can share and help people not make those same mistakes, of course.
Right.
That is an example of a no money down deal. It's my last one, which is 4 ways to fund your first £1 million business purchase. Okay. That makes it possible. Now, as it happens, it fell out of bed. And I'll leave you to watch it, and so you can find out why it fell out of bed. But it wasn't, well, it was in a way related to the financing, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it is possible. And that's a UK company and a UK deal. So it is possible. So to kind of solidify this section, and we'll move on to your other questions, by watching that video, by seeing how it can be done, will help to solidify your belief that it can happen.
Was that the one where it was a £500,000 purchase and you left it too long, and then somebody came in with a cash offer, I think 100,000 extra?
Oh, so you have one? Yeah,
I have.
So that's the one. Well, that's the second part of it, but this one is the actual structure. I don't really watch it where it says it's a mixture of asset finance, invoice finance, seller finance, and investor finance. So yeah, have a watch of that, even because it might be that you watch the previous one, because this links on. Because what happens, I go through this one, which shows you the way I financed it. At the end of it, I said, if you want to see how I messed it up, basically, what's the next one? And I'll explain why it messed up. And it was particularly because of one aspect of the finance. I won't give the game away. I'll let you watch it. But anyway, so.
And that was one of my questions, Russell. It was essentially, when I research how to fund a business, and there are multiple ways, asset financing, invoice financing. A lot of lenders, and also ChatGPT, which I've checked, they said that you can't use asset financing or to purchase the business, essentially. So, which when I look online, that people seem to be doing that. So I can't raise money through assets so that a business owner can take out the funds to then purchase the business. It says that's against the terms.
You can.
Okay.
But it's how you structure it. That's the key.
Okay. So I checked with ChatGPT, I've checked with Claude, and they both have told me because I haven't gotten a straight answer from the program which I bought.
Well,
They both have told me,
do you
no, you
know the
cannot do it
important,
that way.
yeah, do you know the important question or the important element of that is the power of the actual question, asking the right question in the right way. So I would imagine, but I don't know, that you've asked the question in slightly the wrong way and it's misinterpreted, and the answer you've got is not actually the answer to what you want, because it might be, I don't know, how you're thinking that you're buying that business, but rest assured you can.
Okay. That makes me smile because that brings up the belief aspect of it. Because
Yeah. Well, this is
when
why
I
that's why I picked up on that. That was why this is probably the most important element of this call today,
yeah,
Paul.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I've spoken to a few brokers, and I've spoken also to a few companies who are selling. I actually took a I traveled to a butcher's, and I was wanting to buy a butcher's, and I met the two owners and they were retiring. And then I spoke to a broker on how I can fund the deal. The deal was very small, it's minute, it was £60,000. But I got emotionally attached to that deal because it was the first deal that actually got rolling, and then it brought my belief up. And one of the two owners was wanting to retire, the other one was looking to stay on, and they were selling for relatively cheap. And I spoke to immediately after coming out of the butcher's. I got I found a broker up online, and I said, "Look, how can I get this deal done?" And he told me flat out, "No, you cannot. One, the deal is too small. £60,000 is
When you say you cannot what cannot do what with the
you,
deal?
you can't fund this purchase with. We won't. I won't even help you per se." He said, "One, the deal is too small, £60,000." And he said, two, if you want to do something where a no money down deal, we can't do that because those deals that are too small, like £60,000, it's more riskier for a lender than a business that costs 1, 2, 3, 4 million pounds. So he said, typically forget about it. If you want to buy that business, take out a personal loan in your name.
No, no.
Um,
Do not take out a personal loan.
and he told me flat out,
That's
um,
the last thing you do is take out a personal loan.
and yeah, that crushed my confidence.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. Do not take out a personal loan to buy a business.
And and I've not had this kind of straightforward answer from the program. So, this is really this is just these last two questions that you've answered has been so much. It's just worth its weight in gold just having somebody to talk to, because you have
Thank you. I
just flat
appreciate
out
that.
told
Yeah.
me you can buy a business using asset financing, invoice financing. It can be done depending on structure, which I've asked, like I said, I've asked Claude, I've asked ChatGPT, I've asked Google, they've all said no. And I've got somebody who's been there, done that, told me yes. And that's something you sort of
Mm.
clarified. And just now you've told me that one of the brokers that I was on the phone to was just, he wasn't of help at all. And you told me to never take out a personal loan, which I wasn't going to do, but I did think about
Yeah.
it.
Well,
I
I say, let's say you've got a deal in front of you. It's a cracking deal, and for whatever reason, there's a shortfall, and you think, right, it's a big business. Let's say it's a multi-million-pound business, and I'm short by 50 grand. You could take a view on it. So never say never, but
Mhm.
it should be your last resort, really, because let me give you a perspective. What you're attempting to do is to get the business to fund its own acquisition. So, what that means is, but let me just jump back a stage. Are you au fait with the principle of valuing a business? In other words, you take a profit or I say a profit because there are multiple different profits. There's EBIT, EBITDA, adjusted EBIT. There's SDE and all these sort of things. I don't want to bamboozle you with it, but there are various types of profit. Adjusted profit is adding back certain things, deducting other things, but essentially, but you take a profit
Yeah.
and you multiply it by a number. So let's say a business is making £300,000 and you agree a multiple of two. So you'd pay £600,000 for that business. Okay.
Yeah.
And the principle behind that formula and that multiple is you're buying future cash flows. So it's a profit, but essentially it's the cash flow you're buying. So you're saying, in theory, it's going to take me 2 years to pay that back because I've got the profit £300,000. I'm paying 2 times that. So I'm forward paying for 2 years of profits. If I pay 3 times, that would be £900,000. I'm effectively paying 3 years of profits forward. So what you then need to do is when you fund, let's go with the 600,000, it's a 2 times multiple, £300,000 profit. So what you're attempting to now do is to fund that £600,000 from those cash flows. So you might say, well, okay, let's see if we can get £300,000 of that from the assets of the business. If it has assets, it may not. So that may not be a way to go. There are so many different ways of skinning a whatever. What's the, the expression?
Yeah.
And then you can say, well, okay, at this point, you can say to the seller, and will you be prepared to do seller finance on the rest? So you've got 300 grand of some form of asset finance and 300 grand of seller finance. But all of that finance and the term it's set over should be able to be afforded by the business's cash flow because it'll be the business that's paying for that, not you. And that's an important distinction to make where the likes of ChatGPT, Claude, and maybe even brokers don't necessarily understand. Brokers may or may not understand that concept because their job is not necessarily to get that business funded. They just need to sell that business and it'll be up to you. Yeah, they may point you in directions or some sort of broker to help you fund it or to a bank and so on and so forth. But I think it's important, and believe you me, I was there in that position because I started looking at little businesses like the 60 grand butchers. I didn't look at butchers, but I was looking at all those small businesses worth 50 grand, 60 grand, 100 grand, because that's what I thought I could afford to buy.
Yeah.
But then I had the realization that actually, no, there's a different way of doing this. Because I sold a business on seller financing, 100% seller financing, no money down. That was my accounting practice. So I think if you have that shift there, thinking that it's the business funding it, that's an important mind shift of how the funding actually works.
And from that funding, the business owner can take the funding that is from whatever way the money was raised. It can take that, the business owner can take money out, pop it in their pocket, hence you leaving you with the business to then take over.
Yeah. And that comes in the structure of how you set that up. We haven't got enough time to go through how that structure works, but that's the essence of it, and it can happen. And let's just deal with 2 types of finance. You've got seller finance, we talked about. In this case, we're saying £300,000, and you write up an agreement. It takes very short time to agree it. I mean, in my case, in the company that I was talking about, that YouTube video, when I asked the guy, would he take seller finance? In fact, I used to call it vendor finance back then, but it seems to be known more as seller finance. He turned around and said, well, what's that? He didn't even know what it meant, let alone agreeing to it. So I had to explain it to him. But within the matter of 15, 20 minutes, this was a while back, but it was a very short space of time, he agreed to it, 260 grand of seller finance. So then I had the rest of it. So that ordinarily you'd probably give the person security of the business so that they have got some comeback, whether you agree interest or not interest, the term of it. But basically the term of that finance, along with the other finance, has got to be aligned with the cash flows of the business, because there's no point in saying, well, okay, I'll pay you that over X period, but then the business can't afford to pay it over that X period, because that doesn't help you and it doesn't help him. Because if you default on those payments, he hasn't sold a business, he's caused another problem.
Yeah.
And no one wants a problem. You want a smooth transition, you want to be able to afford that business, grow it, and so on and so forth, so that you now own a business and he's off sunning himself in Barbados or where it is,
Yeah.
So then the other type of finance, and let's just use asset finance as the example. And let's say we're buying a business that has got equipment. Let's say it's an engineering business, for an example. That's got a load of equipment sitting in its factory, producing the widgets or whatever it's manufacturing. And let's say it's unencumbered, it doesn't have any loans against it. Let's say we've got £100,000 of equipment. You approach an asset financing company and say, right, I want to raise £60,000 on that £100,000 of equipment, and they say, yeah, okay, that's fine. They would value that asset on a for sale basis. They think, yeah, we could get £60,000 for that, and they would lend you the £60,000 over 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or whatever it is. Again, looking back to making sure that with the asset, with the seller finance and all the other finance, that the business can afford those payments. All right. So that's how you do it. And some people say, well, but how do I approach this? And should I use this finance or that finance, or how do I do it? How much finance, and blah, blah, blah. There's no answer to that. Every single case will be different. And your starting point is looking at the balance sheet, looking at the business, agreeing a price in the first place. That's the key, that you're happy to pay for that business. And then once you've got a price, you then look at how you fund that. And this, you may have come across this problem, I don't know. When you approach business brokers, they possibly said to you, how do you intend to fund the business?
I was just about to ask you that. That was one of my questions.
Yeah, which, if you really think about it, it's a silly question, because they're assuming that you're going to pay them what they valued it at. So if they say, right, this business is worth £200,000 or 300,000 or £1,000,000, doesn't matter. That doesn't mean to say you're going to pay that. So I used to say to them, well, look, I don't even know how much I'm going to be paying for this business, let alone how I'm going to fund it. I haven't looked at the balance sheet, so I don't know what assets there are to fund the acquisition. So I need to be put in front of the owner. I need to get the balance sheets. I need to get the accounts of the last 3 years. I need to be able to do my own valuation of it, negotiate the value, and then look at finance.
And
yeah, go on.
Just to delve deeper into that, it was that exact question. Whenever I do approach brokers, I'm looking at this business. They do want some type of credibility as to who you are, but then they do ask, how do you intend to fund it? And then, I've got to squirm my way around.
Well.
Oh yeah, sending them an email. Oh, blah blah blah, and I'm this type of investor, and then to get them to send me some details. But just to open that a little bit, it's kind of, for me, I wanted to understand. Do I find the lenders first? So do I?
No,
I don't. So I don't look at
because you don't know what lenders you're looking for.
Okay.
You don't know what you're funding. A, you don't know how much. B, you don't know how you're going to fund it. And C, you don't know the period over which you're going to fund it. And that will be governed by the profits of the business. So no, that comes later. First, get in front of the business owner, understand whether it's a business. Well, I mean, you could do this over the phone. You can ask certain questions, make sure it falls within, the realms of a business you want to buy, meet up with the owner and take it further. So then once you know that it ticks your boxes, that you even want to meet the owner in the first place, you go through that with the owner to find out, okay, delve a bit deeper, start building rapport with the seller, negotiate the price. Because until you've agreed a price, you don't know what you're funding. So once you've got a price, you can then chop that up between the different forms of finance. And, and the thing is coming back to this no money down deal, the only way you can make that work is A, if you can buy business for a reasonable price. B, there are the assets and or the sellers open to seller finance. But probably the most important element of that?
Trust.
Yeah, trust is important, but there's another element that you'll probably find that all of that probably won't work to a degree unless you're in front of a motivated seller, and not a seller who's motivated to sell because their business is in trouble, but a motivated seller who's got a good, profitable, cash flowing business. And the reason they're motivated is because they want to retire. They've got some sort of illness, maybe going through cancer. They're going through divorce, they want to move abroad, they want to move to a different area, they're burnt out, etc., etc. So for whatever their reason for wanting to sell, for being motivated, that's the person that you are more likely to get a better deal with. Because buyers don't grow on trees. There are less buyers and business for sale. And what you really need to be in a position of is having more options in front of you. So several businesses, really. So some sort of pipeline of businesses, so that you aren't a motivated buyer. I became a motivated buyer. I recognize that now because I'd spent way too long, because I was learning as I was going along. And I don't regret buying the business because it was a good business, but I probably could have got a better deal with that one or found another business. But I got to the point where I just wanted to buy a business. I was with another business and they were at different parts of the country. So I'm now near Bournemouth, I'm in Dorset. My other business that I was part shareholder on, which was we used to care for people in their own home, was up in near Cambridge. And I used to commute between the two businesses. I had two businesses at one point,
Yeah.
but I wanted to get out of that. And this was my way out because of the people I was in business with. It was a nightmare. Not the business itself, it's a fantastic business. And I'd helped grow that to over £1 million turnover. It was a really fabulous business. But I'd got to the point where, enough's enough. I found this business, it's a good business. Let's just get the deal done. But I've had other deals I've been involved with. And because of my background being a chartered accountant, I understand accounts, I understand finance, and so on and so forth. So my realm of knowledge and dealing in property and buying property on options and all these sort of things, it gives that holistic kind of knowledge that I can impart on people like yourself. So does that help?
It does. Yeah, yeah. And you've answered a couple of my next few questions.
Yeah, because one of your questions is putting finances together. Well, I've effectively answered that, haven't I? Really?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was, like you said, a lot of brokers say, "How do you intend to fund this?" And it's like, I don't know. Let me get some accounts first, and then put it out there.
Yeah.
And I thought you had to. It was kind of a chicken and egg scenario. I thought you had to build up a book of business of lenders, and then sort of get their accounts, and then sort of take it to the lender, and work that way. But
yeah, what you
like
can
you
do
said,
beforehand, if necessary, if you want to go into business with somebody and they're prepared to put some money up, you could have that in place beforehand. So an investor. But if you don't want that, or you haven't got anyone like that, then that's fair enough. That in of itself creates a whole new set of problems. You've got to be very careful who you get into bed with, as it were. And you've got to have the same morals, the same outlook, the same views, and so on of that business. I've had a number of business relationships and partnerships, and I'll say most of them have gone pear-shaped in my history. So you just have to be a bit careful with who you go into business with, if that was a thought. But that's one of the options that you could say. But you could even say this, and this is not a lie per se. Well, it's not a lie. I'd never suggest you lie because that's the wrong thing. But you could say, and you could have someone in your mind when you think about this, could be family, friends, or so on. You could say, well, it depends. I need to look at the business. I need to value it myself. I need to then look at the balance sheet, how I'm going to fund it once I've worked out the price. But for the right business, I may even have an investor on board. So until I know what I'm buying, I can't tell you how I'm going to fund it. That's kind of your wording to put to that broker, if that makes sense. That kind of expands it a little bit.
And that leads very nicely into my next question of how do I build that credibility? Because there were a lot of brokers online which I'd sort of actively search businesses, and then I sort of request some information or data, and they turn around and go to me and they say, "What is your buyer's profile?" And because I'm actively looking for my first acquisition, which I'm looking at anything from businesses from £60,000 all the way up to £1, £2, £3 million, because that's what I've been told.
Purchase price or sales? £1, £3 million, just to get
purchase price.
Yeah.
But again, it's all as to if the seller agrees to vendor financing and everything like that. And I fully don't know the structure, so I am just trying to sort of get myself out there and see how it works because I'm unsure yet. How do I build credibility? So when I'm getting those, hey, what is your buyer's profile? Because I've been declined a few times when I've sent out some messages saying, this is who I am, this is the type of investor I intend to be. And they've turned around and gone to me, yeah, you don't fit a buyer's profile. How do I sort of build credibility? Or is there something, build a board? A lot of people say you build a board.
Like a board. When you say board, not a board of directors.
Board of directors, yeah.
No, you don't need to do that. So, have you bought a house before? All right, that doesn't work.
I haven't, no.
Do you know the process? If you wanted to buy a house, would you know where to start? And I'll explain what I mean by that. roughly, you know.
I'd walk into my nearest bank
No,
and
you
start
wouldn't.
there. Okay.
You wouldn't necessarily go to your bank first, right? Because okay, I've asked you to buy a property. You walk into the bank, and the bank's going to say, "How much do you want to borrow?" Oh, I don't know yet, because I don't know how much the house is I'm going to buy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So bank is not that comes later. Now, sometimes you do get the situation, admittedly, which is a bit like the broker. You get the estate agent to say, before I accept an offer, I want proof of funds and all that sort of thing. Now, I've managed to work my way around those sort of things. It's just negotiating with people. But when you buy a house, which I bought many of, you make a decision within reason, say, right, okay, let's say I want to buy a house. You say, right, I want it to have 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
I want it to have at least 1 ensuite, and I want it to be in this area. I want it to have a garden of so much size. I want it to have a garage, and I want it to be within this distance of the town. Just to pick a few elements of what you look at for buying a house. I mean, that makes sense. You haven't bought a house, but you understand the concept of buying a house, right?
Yeah.
So that's quite specific. But the other thing you would say, but also I would like to buy a house in the range of £300,000 to £350,000, let's say. That's what you think you could, because you've built up a deposit of X amount, and you know you could roughly buy X number of times your salary. That's why you say up to £350,000. So that gives you your focus. Okay. Let me compare that to what you've just said to me. So you go into an estate agent, you say, right, I'm looking to buy a house. They say, what sort of house are you looking for? Well, okay, I'm looking to buy possibly a plot of land that I can build upon for £60,000 up to something in. Have you heard of Sandbanks? No, let's go central London.
Expensive area, isn't it? Yeah, sorry.
Let's go to central London. I want to buy a penthouse for £3 million. So that's my range. And I don't care how many bedrooms it is. I don't care whether it's got a garage or it's from £60,000 plot of land to £3 million penthouse in Mayfair. And you might not be able to get a £3 million penthouse in Mayfair. It might be more, it might be less, but I think you get the concept. The estate agent is going to look at you and think, that's a bit strange. Can you see how that relates to buying a business where you said, okay, anything from 60 grand up to 3 million quid, okay? And how that could damage your credibility in the first place, because what is it he's trying to do? Can I just focus for a minute on the 60 grand business? Because this was a mistake I made. I didn't make the mistake, but this is the mistake I began with, and I changed my strategy. What you don't want to do is buy yourself a job, okay? Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's go with the butchers. You're buying a business with 2 owners in it. There's not a problem in of itself. However, what are those 2 guys doing? They're probably trained butchers. They probably chop the meat, they probably sell the meat, they probably buy the meat, and so on and so forth. So it's not just one person leaving the business when you buy it, it's 2 people. Now, when you buy a business and you do the multiples, and I can going right back to us saying this is the profit, this was the multiple. This profit is an adjusted profit. So whatever money they're taking out, you add back, but then you've got to put something else in to replace what they do. And if you've suddenly got to replace them, and the replacement people you've got to suddenly find to do the chopping of the meat, ordering the meat, and all those sort of things, that's quite difficult. And probably a very small business like that, it probably doesn't have the profits to be able to do that, because they're probably drawing out very minimal profits. I don't know what profitability that butcher's was, but what you've just done, let's say you went ahead and bought that business. What do you know about butchery for a start? That's
0.
Right. So that is it. If you said, right, I'm a butcher and I'm looking to buy a butcher shop, that's one thing, but you would still be buying yourself a job in that scenario. But you've taken it to another level. Now you're buying a butcher's where the 2 main people leave it, and you know nothing about butchery. Now that's not a problem in of itself. The business I ended up buying was a fitted furniture business. I knew nothing about fitted furniture, but the difference, and this is where your credibility will increase. So I get to the point of what I'm saying is you need to decide on kind of the minimum size of business with employees. And the only reason I could buy that business I knew nothing about was because it had a showroom with all the furniture in it that customers come and have a look at and say, oh, I like that wardrobe. How much do I pay for that? So they said, well, okay, what we can do is we'll send out one of our designers. Let's have a look at the appointment book. Let's put your booker appointment in. So then it had designers. They would send out the designers to go and design it. They would sell that job. That would come back. It then had someone that set that job out from the design through to what went into the factory. It then had factory guys who made that furniture, cut it all up, made it into the furniture. It then had fitters to go and fit that furniture. It also had an accounts department to invoice for that job and collect the money for that job. So what did I have to do when I walked in there? I mean, I didn't need to know how to sell it. I didn't need to know I didn't need to run the showroom. I didn't need to work in the factory or the fitting. As it happens, I did go out selling. I wanted to learn the business. I did work in the factory. My background is accounting, so I understood the accounting, but I still had bookkeepers and stuff to do that accounting in the business. So, but you get the difference between the 60,000 and a bigger business. So to help you build that credibility, I'm not saying you need to be specific about the business industry you buy in, be it a manufacturing, fitted furniture business, a widget manufacturer, a engineering business, or whatever that business is. But I think if you buy a certain size of business that has the employees that do the work of that business, that's what you're interested in. So you can narrow down, say, well, okay, coming back to the buying a house analogy. So the price of the business per se is not the how much you pay for the business is not important per se, because the price you're paying, the profit times a multiple. So what you ideally want to be saying is, I want a business with making at least X thousands of pounds, and I recommend at least £100,000. So that's one tick in the box, and the £100,000 might be that it's got a garage, as an example. It's got to have at least, say, this is always the difficult one, but let's go with at least 10 employees, because if he's got 10 employees, it's more likely that those employees are running the business, right? I think the more employees there are, the better, because then it's got structure, it's got systems, it's got processes, and so on. And that might be the number of bedrooms. So a number of employees is a number of bedrooms, and so on. And it's got, let's say, £1 million plus of turnover. That's what I recommend. And then location. So with the house, that's relative to the business. Are you worried about whether the business is in Manchester or Cornwall, or do you want it more local? Now, as it happens, I was living in Cambridge and I bought a business down in Dorset. There's a reason behind that. I met my wife and she lived down here. I was originally looking in Cambridge, and then I stopped looking in Cambridge and I started looking down here. And I was going backwards and forwards. So it is possible to buy a business. I mean, from here to where I lived is about 160-ish miles away. So it's doable, but it depends on your life. I don't know whether you're married with kids and so on and so forth, and whether you want to relocate. So it's a bigger thing if you think, right, I'm going to buy a business. So I'd start certainly within a commutable range, I would suggest, which is no different from buying a house, because you want that house to be near to where you work and near to other things. Or, I mean, like we bought where we are because we're near the New Forest, 15 minutes from the beaches of Bournemouth and so on. And we live in a lovely area. But those are kind of the parameters. So does that help? Because that will add to your credibility, because they say, well, what type of business? So, well, I'm not concerned about what the business does per se, as long as it's in a stable or growing market. You don't want to be buying something that is in a market that's disappearing, because then you're hiding to nothing. So does that broadly answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Probably quite longer than you maybe expected, but it gives you kind of focus.
Yeah, it gave me the detail that I was looking for. I'm looking for something a little bit more detailed, a little bit more of, I don't like this term, but it's a term that really works, hand holding, so that I can understand it.
Yeah, that's a good term. Yeah, I understand
especially for the early stages, because it's something which is brand new to me. I come from the sales and IT space, and this is quite financial. It's
well, it is. I will admit, it was scary. I think my scariest moment. The deal completed on the Friday, and I went to the business for the first time on the Monday. This was in October time, and I remember driving. And from here, where I am sat now, to drive to that business is maximum 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I have to say, that's probably one of the scariest journeys of my life. You visualize all these things. Oh my God, what am I done? I'm thinking, I know nothing about fitted furniture. What have I done? I've said this to other people, but by the end of the first day, everything that had happened on the Friday and the Thursday and so on in the previous weeks happened on the Monday. People still came into the showroom. The factory workers carried on making the furniture. The fitters picked the furniture up that they were fitting first thing in the morning, normally about 7:30, 8 o'clock. They still went out fitting. The designers looked at their appointments, but they went out selling. The accountant was doing the books and raising the invoices and collecting the money. It carried on Monday like it did on the Friday and the Friday before that and the Monday before and so on and so forth. So the whole process is scary, and there's an element of speeding the process up and, using your expression, hand holding, of someone that's been there, done it, and got the t-shirt, and there's validity in doing that. Since then, some of the things I've done, I've spent thousands of pounds on courses, for example, on property. I spent it on 20 grand. Well, no, actually, I think it was about 30 grand on, and that because I had a mentor. I paid 20 grand for a course, then I had a 10 grand mentor. But that led, although I did the deal and I negotiated it, I bought 2 million quid of the property, 12 properties for 12 quid. So I know these deals, and funny enough, I didn't believe that you could do it. That was on an option. I acquired these properties. A bit like you, I thought, no, can't be done. But I thought, no, let's go with it. I had the mentor, and I found this deal, did the deal. As it happens, I sold it on the order up in Newcastle. But the point I'm making is that it
can be done. Yeah,
it can be done, but sometimes you do need someone to hold your hand to give you the added confidence, I guess, belief and guidance, really. So what I'm hoping that you've gained from this call is a bit of guidance, but more importantly, a bit of confidence.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'd say before,
because we have run way over.
We've run way over. That's okay. The last thing I'll ask from you is, I was, like I said, I'm looking for the more mentorship piece, a more long-term relationship where we can sort of be more in direct contact. One of the things in which I was quite unsure about when going through your website quite a few times was exactly how the breakdown of the mentorship works. Now, if you'd like to explain it to me now or later, post, sort of me working together, I think, it all depends on you. But as someone who is a salesman and someone who is actively trying to seek to buy a business, and I really want to buy a business quite quickly, because I remember sort of 3 or 4 months ago, I knew my contract was ending with the company in which I've left. And I said, I don't want to go back into work. I want to go back into business. I've had a business previously. I want to go back into business.
Well, that's a positive. That really works in your favor here, Paul. Definitely. Yeah.
And I wanted to go back into business quite quickly. And I sort of said, hey, let me sort of go and buy a business. But then I couldn't find any, got emotionally attached to the £60,000 business.
And don't beat yourself up. It happens. It happens.
and that was just to fill my job, which I knew that I was going to leave because my contract was ending. And I found your sort of website, and I had to look up and down. And I said, God, this does look right. Prices are really good. Mentorship, that's something I can work with on a monthly basis. But I don't understand the full package of the mentorship. I don't understand.
Well, this is why I'm going to change it. I've had a couple of people go through that, but what I was finding is that it really is one call a month with a community, like a support group. But I was finding it wasn't really working very well. I think what I need, and I think about the mentorship I had, the example I was giving you, that it's probably more of a hands-on, hand-holding, to use your expression, approach. So that when I think it needs to be much more than just say, oh, we've got to wait till the next month before I have a call. You've got a deal in front of you. You're looking at it. You want to sense check it. What do you reckon about the valuation? Do you reckon I'll be able to finance it? And then you're doing the deal and trying to negotiate. You want possibly be able to just get those questions answered kind of live as you go through a deal. That's one example, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think my current mentorship falls down. But of course, the current mentorship is very reasonable to say the least. So a more of a hands-on, hand-holding approach, and I haven't come down to. I'm more or less there, but I'm not going to explain divulge the price of it here because before I put it up. But what I'm looking for at the initial part of that is it would be a question of I've got one person already interested. Once I get a price, I've got another one possibly about to be interested, but I only want a small group of people, probably no more than 3 to 5. But I want to be working with people that are really going to do it. I don't want to be. I want to have when I have a call with someone, I'll go away and I'll say, right, yes, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and and then we get on the next call. So, did you do X, Y? No, I didn't do X, Y, and Z. I want someone that is truly motivated. They want to buy a business. I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. I generally want only people that are committed. I think that's the word I'm looking for. I want commitment. So if you feel that that's you, that would be kind of the criteria of you saying to me, I am committed, because I don't want someone that's going to be,
half-hearted, in and out.
Yeah. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah. I exactly know what you mean. But that was exactly what I was looking for. I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to sort of pay for success and cut corners. I know this is something I can do on my own, but if it's something in which you can assist me with those faster results, then not whatever the price is, right? Of course.
No, it's not whatever, but I think.
But that would be something a lot more valuable to me.
Yeah.
Because I am someone that I'm a go-getter essentially, and this is what I've seen my next 5 or 10 years doing, because I want to acquire business, I want to acquire multiple, and which we'll save for the next call when you fully become my mentor. But I've got a very big plan ahead of me. Wow. Exciting, really exciting.
Yeah, and to be fair, I love being part of that journey. If you can kind of fall into the committed category, if you like. If you feel you fall into that committed category, then I would look forward to working with you. So cool.
But here's the thing. Understanding that something is possible is one thing, and having a big plan is great. But knowing how to actually fund the purchase of business is entirely different, especially if you don't have £1 million sitting in the bank. Watch this video next, where I'll walk you through 4 ways to fund a £1 million business with a real example, which includes seller financing.